But I will tell you this, he's a pretty good showman because, boy howdy, there's a way to put your show on a cliffhanger. Our chat in Discord started rolling along, talking about something that happened on Critical Role. Now, you and I don't really watch the current campaign of Critical Role. I don't know if you've seen any of it.
I don't think so.
No.
I'm just not really a fan of listening or watching people play D&D as much, so.
Right, I understand that. Me, I'm a little bit more of an Adventure Zone person myself, but I have seen, like, the ending of, I think, the first campaign, because I was kind of wondering how they're going to wrap up this very large thing, and it was right around the time I was trying to, do my own podcast, and I wanted to have some idea of how this actually works. So I'm a little familiar with some of the one-shots and stuff like that, but I really haven't been paying attention to the campaign. It's a big investment for me. Basically, I think it was Helicity had mentioned this, that it was getting his jimmies rustled. Yes. But there was a conversation going around following this episode of Critical Role that was talking about Matt Mercer. And if you don't know, Matt Mercer is the DM, the kind of like perma DM of Critical Role, and is usually known as, well, I think we can say the most famous DM currently working.
Probably. Oh, currently, I was going to say Gary Gygax.
Oh, but. yeah, no, but in the current space, I think that Matt Mercer probably famous, and maybe Brennan Lee Mulligan close behind. But he's kind of the one that's well known, and maybe Griffin McElroy, just because of Adventure Zone. But at any rate, Matt Mercer, very well known in the space. And there was this whole tweet thread that Helicity brought up where someone was saying that Matt Mercer is a terrible DM. And
right. So that makes you go, okay, now why?
Why?
Is he a terrible DM?
So this is the Twitter thread as it's written. Matt Mercer.
I'm sure there's a screenshot here.
There's a screenshot. Helicity has given a screenshot. I can use this. Great. But anyway, Matt Mercer is a terrible DM. The response back is, no, players honestly need consequences. Response back, consequences don't just have to be death. Any good DM knows this. Response, so you think PCs should never die, truly. And then the response back to that is this fascinating piece. Not what I said. PCs shouldn't permadie unless the player is okay with it. You can impose other consequences than death on your players. Debt to whoever revives them, for instance. Okay.
I believe we've had a conversation about this type of thing before on the show.
Probably.
Not specific to Critical Role, but like killing players or killing characters. Not don't kill players. Please don't kill players. Killing their characters.
you rolled bad and you will face the consequences.
So I guess this gets into minor spoiler territory ahead. So,
yeah.
If you don't want any spoiler on what's going on, skip ahead to whatever Nathan puts in.
Yeah.
To tell you where to skip ahead to.
Right.
In post.
In post. This will be done in post. I'll figure out a time code.
Yeah, there you go.
But anyway, okay, so this is basically the upshot is that in the current Critical Role campaign, a few of the players got knocked down, and they probably won't be getting up again. Somebody did indeed keep them down. That's how the Chumbawamba song works now.
That's how Chumbawamba.
They took.
Yeah. So apparently, a couple of the party members have died, and another one of the party members might be having a death saving throw.
Yes.
Left, and then one other party member seems to be incapacitated by their own power.
Yeah.
So there's a spoiler.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell you who you got to watch to find out.
Yeah, no.
An article.
Yeah, we're not. If you are interested, I will link an article about it down below that I got my information from. But yeah, basically a lot of people not in great shape, and then kind of a cliffhanger, which honestly, obviously they're going to do a cliffhanger, because if I was in the middle of a kind of combat where all of that was happening, my first thought would be, before we resolve this, let's pause and come back for next week. And realistically, next week's audience is going to be huge for this.
Yeah.
It's regardless of what happens now, because they want to see what happens. And look, there's possibilities, like they're mentioning, that they might figure out a way around this, because they do have like clerics and stuff in their party, so they can theoretically revivify some people if they need to, and try to work this out. But it's not looking great. It's not a great shape for them to be in. Okay, so that being said, out of spoiler territory,
somewhere before now is out of spoiler territory.
Yeah,
we're clear now.
We're now out. We're completely in the clear of spoiler territory. So let's get back to the actual point here that this brings up, which is really about the idea of character death and what that actually entails. Is it permanent? What happens afterward? And more importantly, I guess in this relation, is Matt in the right here? Or
is Matt a terrible DM for this?
Is Matt a terrible DM for this? I'm gonna let you answer that before I talk.
Oh, is that the question you want me to answer?
Yeah, is Matt a terrible DM?
Judging by the fact this is what, campaign 3?
Third season, yeah.
Of a very, very popular live play, or,
Yeah.
By all accounts, he is not a terrible DM. By all accounts, he may actually be a fantastic DM. Because if you can get people this riled up and get the audience this excited and your players that invested into a story where you suddenly incapacitated half the party and it's part of the story going ahead, and you leave that on a cliffhanger, that's really well done, I think.
Yeah, I think the thing is, like, I've seen Matt DM, and he's a terrific DM. I know why he does this all the time. More importantly, the crew that he works with on Critical Role has been with them this is the same crew. The basic core cast is the same cast that they've had since the beginning. They started this because it was fun for a bunch of these nerdy-ass voice actors, as they refer to themselves as, to get together and play Dungeons & Dragons. They've done this for multiple campaigns. They've done this through multiple characters. They've had very tragic storylines in the past. I don't for a second think that any of the players that were coming into this thought to themselves, oh, Matt's gonna give us softballs this time, because they've never had those. Mercer, like, I remember when they were talking to me about, like, running games and styles that people have, they were like, you don't necessarily have to go full Matt Mercer, which means that the characters themselves have to, like, keep track of information. Like, the players have to, like, keep notebooks, because if they don't remember, then their characters don't remember. It's intense stuff. Like, there's rules, but the players that he has know what those rules are.
Yeah, that's as per any table you join. There are rules with your DM and your group, even if they're not, like, said, but it's like, all right, like, when you guys are playing with me, it's like, I expect you guys to remember what's happening.
Right.
And recap. And if not, I can give you a recap, but you guys should remember what you guys have going on.
Right. And you also assume that if I'm going to do something particularly wacky, 1, I have to be able to justify it, and 2, realize it probably won't work. Like... We don't know. Yeah, I always assume that when I'm working with anybody, that either if I'm running things, that they're going to have a fairly good idea of what I do, and if I'm in a game, that I'd have a fairly good idea of what someone else running does. But I mean, that's a lot of session 0, or just knowing the people or working with them over a long period of time. Yeah, so we had a good little run of a chat in Discord where we were talking a little bit about that. Helicity's comment, I think, about so Mercer let the dice fall where they may, is a pretty good one. The other point that I think Helicity made was that this is a conversation about people doing wrong fun. You're having fun wrong. Don't do it. And the other point, which is a very good point to make, is that you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. The risk of death is not only implied, but explicitly part of the mechanics. There's literally death saving throws in this game.
And even to say ignore death saving throws as a mechanic, you need something there to kind of be attention giver. You need something to have at stake. And if it's not death in your campaign, if, for instance, Crave was saying to me before we recorded, like, you know, kind of like playing a game on easy mode versus a hardcore mode, maybe death is not something at stake in your game. So there has to be something else that is at stake. So maybe it's not death you're worried about. Maybe you can reincarnate. Maybe you can come back from the dead. Maybe you have an afterlife and you live on through the afterlife and can come back or something. Doesn't matter what your game does. There has to be something at stake to make risking things worth it.
Yeah, the thing that he was saying before dice falling where they may is that in the context of the story, basically, they took on something that was very powerful, had a chance to bail, and they chose not to. So the players made a choice. And they realized that there was going to be risk associated with it.
That's like the example I've given before, where I've told you about that boar. That
with Hephaestus.
Rag on me about. But it's
Hephaestus,
I had no. This is a game I DM'd years ago.
Oh, okay.
I had 2 party members out of 8 decided they wanted to go off and go hunting, and they found a dire boar. And I informed them that let them make some checks to see if they thought they could handle it. And they passed their checks, and I was like, you feel like you get the idea that this thing is kind of powerful, and like it probably could hurt you a whole lot, as it's a rather big boar, you know, kind of a DM nudge to, you probably don't want to fuck with this thing. It could probably kill you.
Yeah.
But the players decided, after, you know, giving them that knowledge, they, in character, decided, no, we got this. Which is fine. If your characters are full of that bravado, that's your choice. If that's what your character wants to do, go for it. Sure.
Yep.
You know, but you're going to live with the consequences. And, you know, when the boar happens to roll a critical hit and max out its damage on your second or third level characters, it hurts and may perhaps murder them.
But hey, I mean, in one D&D rules, your players might have still been alive after that.
Yeah, with that, they might be alive because damn can't. Right.
Here's a question I always wondered about with that story. If the players that had gone off on their own, after you informed them that this is a very dangerous boar, if they had tried to get the rest of the party and come back, would they have fared a pretty good chance of living through that? Would the boar be able to take on the whole party?
I mean, they'd have a lot more players. They had like 8 people.
Oh!
So, there'd be a very good chance that they could have handled that boar.
Yeah.
Even so, they poisoned their arrows and pretty much killed the boar anyways, but it was delayed death.
Right. Got it.
They did murder it.
But they also got murdered. Yeah.
I mean, maybe I just said it got murdered.
Yeah.
Like from the poison.
Yeah.
But it gored them good. Anyways.
Yeah.
I did.
They could have run away after they poisoned the boar.
Sure. They charged them. They chose to have one of them hide behind the other one of them.
Yeah, that didn't work out very well.
When you're slender elves, it does not work.
You get skewered.
You are not a meat shield.
They are elf kebabs.
Very much so.
Yeah. This does make me remind me a little bit of that genre that we don't really like to talk about. But there are a couple versions of Souls-likes that actually do talk about like death and what happens when you come back from it. Chronos, Before the Ashes, which is supposed to be like a prequel to Remnant, what they do is that if you do die at any point while you're playing the game, you come back, but you like age a year every time you do, and that will actually affect what maximums for different stats will be. Like your strength can be higher when you're younger, but your wisdom can be higher when you're older. And so you have to figure out, like, okay, I'm going to have certain prerequisites if I do this when I'm young, but if I keep dying, I'm going to get older, and I'm going to have to change my playstyle around. There's also Sifu, which I remember came out just this year, which is another one where you're in, like, an actual, like, martial arts sort of kung fu beat-em-up, but when you die, you gain years, and it becomes harder for you to execute the actual moves as you're going forward, because you're getting older, and you're not quite as spry as you used to be. And and if you get to a certain age, and you get knocked out again, you die of old age.
I don't like games that make it harder for you for failing.
You don't like Demon Souls? Okay.
No, I don't. We've talked about that, but that's not
Circle of the
tangential
Moon.
to this.
No, except for what other kinds of things you could do besides death. I don't mind the idea of doing something after death. We might talk about that on a future episode, about like the afterlife or other realms or what might happen to your party if you do have a total party kill. But I mean, death still has to kind of be on the table for you, because... Yeah. My point that I had put forward is, like, if death is going to be off the table, are these dragons made of Nerf foam? Like, you can't really say that this is a dangerous and exciting world if there aren't going to be consequences for, engaging with that world. So to answer the question of that particular tweet thread, I suppose what we're saying is no, Matt is not a terrible DM, but I will tell you this, he's a pretty good showman, because boy howdy, there's a way to put your show on a cliffhanger. Especially
just for this specific example, I would say that this is planned out.
Yeah.
Even though the dice may have decided the fates of these characters for that, but it was planned out to be very tough and potentially kill players, I assume, and to leave it on this very tense and emotional spot. In that case, it's tremendous amounts of planning and forethought. Yeah. And on his players' counts, it's tremendous amounts of going for it and sticking to their guns. Yep. To try and get the outcome they want. Yeah. Because I'm sure it could have gone entirely different. Maybe the entire party could have gotten killed. Yeah. Or maybe they could have just taken out this really powerful thing with really good rolls, for instance, Yeah. Who knows how it could have swung? But, like, if you're designing an encounter to be this type of difficult, then you're going to have interesting results no matter what. And there will be a fantastic story to tell from it regardless. Oh, yeah. I mean, I did mention... But in the words of famed philosopher Tony Stark, part of the journey is the end. So your characters may eventually come to an end, but the very fact that people seem to care so much for characters does speak a lot to the importance and the storytelling that led up to that, of how those characters developed. And in part, the reason that happened is because of the DM who happens to be running the game. The players, yes, but also the DM has a hand in building that character up. So if you like that character, and you're worried about that character, realize that the DM is one of the reasons why that happened. So... Anyway, we'll be interested. Maybe if something cool happens on the next episode, we might do a follow-up. But we don't usually talk about Critical Role because we're not knowledgeable about it like other people. But since it was presented to us in the Discord, we thought we would talk about it. And since it's an interesting topic this time.
It is.
But if you have thoughts, arguments on this thought of ours, get at us in the comments, yell at us, tell us we're wrong, tell us you can DM incorrectly.
Yes, actually, I'd be interested in examples that you would like to give of what DMing incorrectly is for you.
DMing incorrectly for me is having your DM speak for you, and then so every time you get into a counter and you choose to run away, and the DM's like, no, I'm just gonna knock you guys out and do Sex Machina you. That's bad DMing.
That's bad DMing. You know what I consider bad DMing? Handing out inspiration based on who brought the best snacks.
I think that's great DMing.
Okay, fine. Never mind.
You know, they should bring snacks.
Okay,
Treat
fine.
your DM to snacks. That's bribery 101.
If you get the best snacks, they'll give you a ring of spell storing.
I don't think that's true.
Well, you never know.